If you're anything like us, sometimes you look at your phone or your laptop.
Right.
And you get that nagging thought, don't you? How did just a handful of companies get so big, so incredibly fast?
That they're basically operating like their own sovereign nations now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Seemingly running the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
And you've brought us a really fascinating stack of sources here. Geopolitical analysis, corporate strategy docs, and we've waded through the noise for you.
We have.
We are going straight to the core to really analyze the most critical power structure in the world today. The global tech oligarchy.
And that feeling you mentioned that these companies have just gone beyond normal corporate influence, that's exactly what we're digging into today.
Okay.
Our mission isn't just to talk about how powerful they are, because I think we all sort of suspect that.
We feel it every day.
Yeah, we feel it. It's about peeling back the layers to see how that power is actually being, wielded.
Yeah.
We're talking global conflicts, massive economic dominance, and even the subtle reprogramming of your social reality.
Wow. Okay, so let's unpack this, because based on the research, we've identified 5 specific realities that define big tech's unprecedented global footprint right now.
Let's do it.
Let's start with a defense mechanism they've really perfected. We're calling it the geopolitical firewall.
Mm-hmm.
This is basically the strategy where big tech decides dealing with foreign rules is, inconvenient.
A hassle, yeah.
So they just outsource their lobbying to the most powerful foreign policy machine in the world, the U.S. government.
It's a remarkably aggressive pivot. The European Union, as your sources really detail, has tried to position itself as the global leader in digital accountability.
Right.
They passed these landmark, really tough new laws, the Digital Services Act, or DSA,
The DMA.
the Digital Markets Act, DMA, and of course, the new AI Act.
And for anyone listening who isn't deep in the jargon, what are these laws actually trying to do?
Well, they impose core duties and responsibilities. The DSA, for example, it requires large platforms to assess how their services might contribute to systemic harm.
So things like mental health impacts or election interference.
Exactly. And the DMA is all about fairness. It's designed to force these huge gatekeeper firms to allow competition and to stop them from just promoting their own products, their foundational laws.
But the moment these rules were about to take effect, big tech didn't just, hire a better law firm in Brussels.
Right.
They turned it into a foreign policy fight.
Mm-hmm.
They basically suggested that enforcing these laws somehow threatens U.S. national interests.
That is the crucial move, and we have explicit evidence of this. Mark Zuckerberg argued that, and I'm quoting here, the U.S. government has a role in basically defending the U.S. tech industry abroad.
Wow.
At the same time, we're seeing reports that Apple's Tim Cook directly asked the U.S. administration to step in and fight against big EU fines.
They're trying to turn a regulatory issue into a diplomatic crisis.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And the scary part is, the sources indicate that this pressure actually works.
Because the U.S. government is starting to see an attack on these corporations as an attack on its own economic and security interests.
Look at the severity of it. Your sources cite a former U.S. vice president who suggested, right in the middle of a regulatory fight, that the U.S. could potentially drop its support for NATO.
Wait, hold on a second.
Yeah.
The U.S. might withhold support for NATO, the core defensive alliance, over regulating a private social media company.
That's what was floated. It's absolutely staggering, and it shows the immense leverage they have.
So they can frame a debate about consumer protection as a matter of international security.
And that's the game. They forced the U.S. to put its diplomatic weight behind their commercial model. Meanwhile, the EU correctly points out that its laws don't target U.S. companies specifically.
They just apply to anyone operating in Europe.
Right. Comply with the standards. But the defense from Washington turns it into something much bigger.
Okay, so if the U.S. government is willing to defend them so aggressively on the world stage, I guess it's not a surprise that they're also relying on them so heavily at home.
It's a natural progression.
And that brings us perfectly to our second reality, the $9 billion handshake. This is the deep functional integration of big tech into the national security state itself.
It's a huge shift. 10, 15 years ago, the most powerful companies in the world dealt with physical things.
Oil, telecoms, industrial goods.
Exactly. Today, the world's most valuable companies are almost all digital. The FAANG companies, right? Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Netflix, Google.
Their commercial dominance is a given. But what's new is how that has become so intertwined with critical defense infrastructure.
And the most concrete proof of that integration is the Pentagon's massive, and I mean massive, dependence on them.
You talk about that huge cloud contract.
Yes, the Joint Warfighter Cloud Capability contract, JWCC. This is a $9 billion deal.
$9 billion.
It's a multi-vendor contract awarded to Google, Amazon Web Services, Microsoft, and Oracle.
But I have to ask the critical question here. Isn't just contracting with big, secure companies just, smart business for the Pentagon?
That's a fair question.
Why is this functional integration and not just a normal vendor relationship?
Because of the scope. This isn't just about buying some servers. This is building the entire military cloud computing backbone.
The core.
The absolute core. It spans all classification levels, and it extends, quote, from the strategic level to the tactical edge.
So from the generals in the war room down to the soldier in the field.
All of it. Modern, data-intensive warfare, AI-driven targeting, it all relies on this cloud. So when you give that to 4 private companies, you are saying the ability of the U.S. to wage war,
To run intelligence operations.
to maintain national security, it is now fundamentally reliant on the same corporations that are running your shopping cart and your email.
So if Amazon's AWS goes down, or if a major bug is found in Microsoft's architecture, the national security of the entire country is immediately compromised.
That's it. They are now functionally critical extensions of the state. The line has just vanished.
This overwhelming U.S. dominance brings us very neatly to our third reality, which is Europe's big challenge.
The flip side of the coin.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Despite Europe's very clear intent to lead the world in ethical regulation, it's dangerously dependent on the very U.S. tech it's trying to govern.
The ambition is there, the regulatory muscle is there, but the structural reality is just incredibly challenging.
How so?
Well, when you look at the foundational layers of technology, cloud computing, standard office software, the most advanced AI models, they're all dominated by U.S. firms.
So Google and Microsoft are just entrenched.
Deeply. They're investing billions in local data centers all across Europe, and sure, that brings jobs, but it also solidifies that infrastructural lock-in and makes it almost impossible to decouple.
And yet, the potential for Europe, if they could harness this stuff, is enormous.
Oh, it's huge. Your sources cite an estimate from a German economic institute that says AI alone could offer Europe about 330 billion euros
Per year.
in annual economic potential, if it's used broadly. That is a staggering amount of growth being left on the table.
So what's the hesitation? Why the delay if the rewards are that high?
It's a tension between speed and structure. A major challenge that critics bring up is that the very regulatory framework Europe prides itself on, while ethical and needed,
It slows things down.
it slows innovation down. U.S. firms operating with a lighter touch just accelerate faster. And this whole dilemma was captured perfectly by a Siemens executive.
Right, that quote from Cedric Nike? It's
Yeah.
devastatingly accurate.
It is. He said, "We are a bit the Silicon Valley of regulation."
And we should actually be the Silicon Valley of engineering.
It just perfectly captures the tension. Europe is stuck balancing its need for accountability with the need for speed and freedom to innovate.
And the U.S. strategy of promoting freedom instead of rules just happens to favor their existing giants.
Of course it does. So you see this political urgency at summits, Macron and Merz talking about digital sovereignty, but the structural dependence is a stalemate that's incredibly hard to break.
It's not just about dominating the current markets, is it? It's about making sure no one else can even rise up to challenge you.
That's the next layer.
Which leads us straight into our fourth reality, how the oligarchy protects itself. We're calling it the acquisition juggernaut. It turns out that just having huge piles of cash is the ultimate anti-competitive armor.
Deep pockets doesn't even begin to do it justice. The financial reserves these companies have are just immense, and it all funds their aggressive expansion.
And it's not organic growth, is it? It's not just them innovating and beating the competition.
Not at all. It's a systematic, planned elimination of any emerging threat through acquisition.
The scale of this is what really brings the concept of an oligarchy home for me. The 5 largest tech giants, Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Apple, they've collectively acquired over 750 companies.
750, just think about that.
All that intellectual property, all that talent, all those niche market ideas, just absorbed. That's hundreds of potential competitors that were just neutralized before they could ever reach scale.
And these were not random purchases. They were highly strategic defensive moves. I mean, why did Google pay $1.7 billion for YouTube way back when?
It wasn't just to own a video platform.
No. It was to make sure that a huge future competitor in digital advertising and content wouldn't emerge outside of their control.
And Facebook's playbook is the classic case study, spending $22 billion on WhatsApp.
Right, a platform that barely made any money at the time.
But they were buying up a potential future communications giant that could one day challenge their own social graph. They were making sure that no matter which medium won social feeds or encrypted messaging, they would own it.
And you see the same with Microsoft buying LinkedIn for $26 billion. They just locked down the entire professional networking space.
So this is the key insight, really. The acquisitions are essential to keeping the oligarchy in place.
It's a powerful, self-reinforcing loop of dominance where the only real path for a groundbreaking startup is often just to get bought out by one of the giants.
Okay, finally, let's turn to the most subtle, but maybe the most profound form of power they have, the invisible curator. This is about how algorithms distort your personal social reality without you even knowing it.
Absolutely. Think about your daily life online. It is completely shaped by invisible algorithms.
In your social media feed, your search results, your recommendations.
Yeah, that whole personalization layer. It dictates what you see and, crucially, what you don't see. And it has this massive, often unrecognized influence on your personal experience, your beliefs, even your mood.
And what's truly shocking here is just how unaware most people are about this curation. Your source has found a study of Facebook users.
And the finding was staggering.
More than 62.5% of people were completely unaware their newsfeed was being filtered by Facebook's algorithms. They thought they were seeing every post from every friend.
And that lack of awareness has severe social consequences. When you don't know you're seeing an engineered feed, you start drawing the wrong conclusions about your life. The researchers found that users would mistakenly think that the absence of a friend's posts was a sign of social rejection.
So they'd assume a friend was ignoring them, maybe over politics, or was actively being hostile.
When in reality, the algorithm had just hidden those posts to try and optimize for engagement or some other metric.
That is so counterintuitive. An algorithm designed to optimize the platform is actually creating real-world social exclusion and fracturing relationships.
Precisely. And if the majority of users don't even know they're seeing a highly curated, engineered version of their social world, how can they possibly engage critically with information?
Or understand their own political polarization, or even just maintain healthy relationships.
This is the core ethical problem. When the algorithms are opaque, they inevitably produce these ethical and social consequences. It goes way beyond just being a technical issue.
It requires urgent oversight.
Yes. There's a documented urgent call for much more transparency and for the mandatory inclusion of ethicists in the development of these incredibly powerful systems. The design choices made in these companies have fundamental societal outcomes.
So we've seen big tech acting as a geopolitical force, a necessary part of the U.S. military, an economic vacuum cleaner, and an invisible curator of your personal reality.
All at the same time.
The conversation about whether tech should be regulated is definitively over. But the real battle, the enforcement battle, that's really only just beginning.
And ultimately, the core tension here isn't just about controlling technology. It's about defining the principles of governance in this new digital age. The power dynamic has completely inverted.
How do you mean?
The organizations that are going to survive this era, whether they are governments or corporations, they have to be designed to change and adapt, not just to endure.
You've seen the evidence of the tech oligarchy's power. If the EU is becoming the Silicon Valley of regulation, and the U.S. favors freedom instead of rules to protect its own champions, what blend of sovereign control and entrepreneurial freedom will ultimately ensure technology serves society's interests, and not just the balance sheets of the Big Four? That's your deep dive for today.